It's a great step. It's going to be voted around this fall. We're asking for advice. If you want this piece of legislation, I'll give you my card and I can email it to you. It is a huge step in the right direction. And then the second part of it is an ADU clause that they're trying to get passed. Basically, this says a tiny home house built in accordance to the 2018 International Residential Code, Appendix Q, which we brought up earlier, may be allowed as an accessory dwelling unit for the purposes of permanent residence without being attached to or constructed within primary dwelling unit, which City of Tacoma has a law that you can build an ADU, but it must be attached to your building. So the city planning also is very pro tiny home now with City of Tacoma, and they're trying to change things, but nothing is fast in our government, as you're well aware. This also says a tiny house with wheels that meets the certification requirements of ANSI 1192, 1195, or that is self-constructed with RCW 43, 222, 355, in which the owner has made reasonable accommodation for water, power, and sewage disposal for use as permanent residence may be allowed as an accessory dwelling unit without being attached or constructed within the primary dwelling unit. So that is also, we're trying to merge them both and just pass it as one big piece of legislation, blowing up everything. But we will still have to work with local jurisdictions, whether it's a city. The county is kind of doing a passing the buck thing right now, which I'm trying to get them on board. They're saying, well, we're just gonna let the cities do it. Well, cities will be in charge of it. City of Puyallup will just be in charge of that, and they can decide whether to accept it or not. My big problem with that is the land that has there's a lot more land in unincorporated Pierce County, and that's where I see bigger, larger scale communities like the villages, or if you want to put one in your backyard, it should be allowed. But sorry, I'm talking fast. There's going to be questions, and I'm here for you. So yeah, go ahead, sir. That's kind of what this is saying, that they're basically saying, he was basically saying that the jurisdiction, the city that he lives in, will basically outlaw that. It will basically impose their own rules. And this is basically giving us permission to blow that out of the water. Your city jurisdiction is supposed to look towards either federal or state law so that they don't get sued. That's their biggest concern. Right now, the IRC code that says you can only live in your RV for 120 days, they don't want to get sued. I've been told by Pierce County alone that, hey, you could go register as a church and go start a village tomorrow, and we can't say anything against you. So I've actually thought about that. How do we become a religious organization here of tiny home fans, tiny home lovers? And we'll start doing this tomorrow. We'll get septic in there and just make it happen. But along the line of normal developers, we want to encourage the people with money, that they're the one percenters, to invest in low-income housing. And this is what I believe is the only solution out there that has been presented. Not teepees, that's not a solution. Tiny homes are the solution. Did you? Yeah, the 501c3, there's been talk, Zyger was literally like, if you want to get stuff passed, you got to form a 501c3 with some people to get donations, hire somebody to go get drunk with the Olympia guys and hang out there. And I didn't think I needed to do that. Actually, we haven't done that, and this stuff is coming down the line. And we are getting a lot of support, a lot of support from the Democrats, but there's rules that they want to impose in place too, to keep everything, you don't want people just go out and randomly start building and houses to be falling apart down the road. And the conservatives are of the mindset, well, we're worried about this, worried about that. And I've come from the attitude that you used to be able to go and build a house anywhere, and we can't do that anymore. So we have a lot of people struggling, and this will open it up. But yeah, go ahead. Sorry. In King County, yes. King County has another cup of tea. I went to them, they actually called us this last January and said, we want to develop a tiny home community. We're going to own it. They're very pro finding a solution for the affordable housing crisis that we have going on right now. And so they came to us and said, what do you propose? How can we get rid of fees? there's a $6,000 connect fee to hook up to their sewer system. So they lost some bids last year. Apparently they were trying to do the same thing. Again, they're trying to just make sure the area that tiny homes are in, whether they're in somebody's backyard or they're a community village concept, they're trying to make sure that they don't get sued down the road. The people that we've talked to there's 3 projects I know that are going on right now for the community aspects that they're very pro tiny home with. They've been entertaining the backyard concept as well, to the point where I've been told, go ahead and just start doing it now. And the way I got that discussion passed was I confronted some conservatives that were in the county council and said, you know, we voted to legalize marijuana in the state. The people have decided on that issue, and the people can't live in a home, and you're ignoring federal law with that issue, but you won't allow people to live in a home that is on wheels or even an RV. So we pushed that for about 3 months, and then this year we finally got some calls that said, yeah, we want to make sure this isn't happening and this is a solution. I've had some people call me up in the last year and said, oh man, I talked to them 2 years ago and there were absolutely no tiny homes on wheels. But I talked to somebody earlier who was talking about Issaquah area, just kind of, they're balking at it, but it's a matter of finding the right property and going to the county, and then also the language that you use. I try not to even use the language tiny homes, because a lot of people think that's a shed, that's the homeless sheds in Seattle. And to me, it's not. There's gorgeous units out here, you see them. So, it's about engaging with them. Also, one loophole too, it's not a necessarily loophole, but the counties understand it, and it's going to them and talking to them as a park model home. We've gone to them and said, hey, this is a park model home built by the customer themselves or a vendor, and we start engaging that process with actual permits. Fortunately, it's permits instead of like tiny home without a permit. It's engaging them with permits, all that, and developing that whole plan, and then you have your home there, and you move a smaller home in, an 8-foot by 20-footer. They're not going to say anything because you have the permit for a structure there, and they're not going to check up on that. So that's something we've been told lately is, you can develop it that way with an RV park model home instead of a tiny home. But, there's a language there, there's a language barrier. I just had a county councilman reach out to me a couple days ago here from Pierce County and said, they want to schedule a meeting with me just to figure out all this stuff. And, everybody wants to get reelected right now. So they're all seeming very pro housing and figuring out this, mother-in-law issue. But I'll hand it back over. If you have any questions, I'll be here with cards. And
thank you, Todd. He'll be here for questions. Let me just finish the couple of more slides that I had, and then we'll take some questions from everyone. Resources. I'm a tinyhouser.com. You'll find placement, insurance, and I've got some stickers up here that has that placement, insurance, and funding. American Tiny House Association, if you're right on top of the zoning, so if you're looking for zoning in other areas other than this area, that's a great place. And to become a NOAA member, I'll tell you about the different memberships. We have the manufacturers. Those are the ones that build 2 or more a year. DIYer builds 1 in 12 months. We have the educational. There's a lot of colleges and high schools that are building tiny houses. Well, we do the inspections to make sure they're knowing what they're doing and they're doing it correctly. And so that's an educational. The membership includes a seal, inspections, free consultations, and we store these digitized inspections, so we're totally transparent. We can tell the city or the county, hey, here you go. You can see exactly how it was built. And we do it on each and every house, and that's how we make the difference. We also have an associate membership for those that are developers or tiny house vendors, like the composting toilet, which you'll hear Isabel in just a few minutes. Here, talking about composting toilets, that's an associate member. And then an advocate membership is just somebody that wants to stay in touch with what's going on. So we have a very low-cost membership in that realm. And there's my contact information, and I have one thing more to do, and then we're going to do questions and answers. I want to tell you about Daniel. He had a tiny house, and they made him take it off of his property. So he moved into a house and put it on a slab in his side yard as an RV. Code enforcement came and said, no, that's not an RV. That's a mobile home. Well, mobile homes are 400 square feet or more.
Yeah.
And they're regulated by HUD. No, that's a mobile home. So he hired an attorney, and they hired me to be an expert witness. We went and we talked to them, and I, on the courthouse, argued that no, this is built to RV codes, and he actually had us, after the fact, help him get this thing up to RV codes and all that. It was built to RV codes, and there are other RVs in the neighborhood you should allow to have. Well, unfortunately, after all of that, they said no. So I wrote this little thing that I want to read to you, and then we'll take questions and answers. I can see it. I see it. I see freedom to live. Freedom to live where I want, how I want, in a safe, secure home. And without a reason for concern or fear, will the neighbor complain and code enforcement make me move? I am out of that spiral that pads someone else's pockets. The high interest payday loans, the high cost of rent-to-own furniture and TVs, credit cards. I believe, I can see it. I challenge the status quo. I'm angry. I am not a cow to be herded around to keep up with the Joneses.
Yep.
No longer do I buy things I don't need with money I don't have to impress people I don't like. I'm kissing my landlord goodbye. I will get my tiny home and live in peace and serenity. I can see it.
Amen.
Thank you, guys. Okay. Remind me to repeat the question. Yes.
Appreciation and depreciation.
Yes.
And I'm wondering, tiny homes haven't been out that long.
Correct.
Manufactured homes.
And so do RVs.
Not right now.
Okay. Question is about depreciation and appreciation and what's going to keep the tiny house appreciating when mobile homes, manufactured houses, and RV lifespan is about 15 years. What's going to keep them from depreciating? It's going to be, number one, they're built right, correctly. They're make sure that you get, whether it's NOAA or RVIA or some other third party that's looking at it. Even though you got a great builder, just make sure you got a third party looking at it. Second, they're built like a tiny house but it's on a trailer, but it's built to the same standards. When we do inspections on these things, we're looking for zip panels, we're looking for underlayment. We inspect their house wrap before they put the siding on. We inspect the windows and make sure they have all the tape all around it. We inspect the underlayment before the roofing goes on. We want to make sure that this tiny house is taken care of. There's things like moisture buildup on the inside of the tiny house that we have to be careful about. But the bottom line is, when you build a stick-built house, it appreciates in value. Well, why can't a tiny house on wheels be built to the same standards and appreciate in value? And they are.
Yep, there.
Next question. Yes, sir.
Related to that question, about market value after sale, the secondhand market where you sell your tiny home now. Differentiate tiny home on wheels versus a tiny home on a foundation. And I think the International Residential Code, if your tiny home is built to that code, that's not a problem. That's considered a residence or a dwelling.
The dwelling, yes.
And you don't have any issues with appreciation and financing. But if it's on wheels, that's the problem. In your experience, you see those appreciating value?
Yes. Yeah, okay. Yeah, he's talking about market value and how if a tiny house is built on a foundation, then obviously it appreciates in value. How can we be sure that a tiny house on wheels is going to appreciate in value? And have I seen that happening? Yes. Here's the caveat that I'm going to say. Some people walk into that tiny house and they say, "I gotta have it." and they pay more than it's worth. And then if they try to sell it, obviously it's not going, if they pay more than, $225 a square foot is kind of a rule of thumb that I work with on these things. So yeah, it's more than a tiny house on a foundation. However, but think about this. You've got a kitchen, you got a bath, you got electrical, you got plumbing, you got everything that you have in a big house in a small house, and you got to work double to have, this is a table, it's a desk, now it's a bed. You got to work double on these things. So when you're buying a big house, you're buying all those things and a lot more air. In a tiny house, you don't have all that air. So square footage wise, you've got to expect to pay a little bit more than you would on a big house. However, in the long run, because it is a small house, you know, $40, $50, $60, $70,000 is a lot less than $250,000, which, you know, you're going to pay for a big house. But yes, we have seen appreciation. We do have that happening. We are gathering data for the banks and the lenders for that specific purpose, so that when they call, we can give that to them. But so far, we've seen the houses, tiny houses on wheels, appreciating rather than depreciating in value. Yes, Todd?
I just want to say one more thing. I actually spoke with the head of USDA financing in Washington State, and normally there's a 420 square foot rule for financing, but she actually said now they're kind of ignoring things. And she said as long as you could take the wheels off and put it down on the ground on blocks, they will actually finance it as long as the tiny home can come with the property as well. So their government's kind of getting behind crazy things like that. And they're 1 or 2% interest rates on those loans too. USDA.
And the USDA loan would be a rural area,
Yeah.
not a city.
Yep.
But a VA loan or a conventional financing could be in the city. As long as it's attached to real estate,
Yeah.
it's on a permanent foundation connected to utilities, you can apply for a mortgage. And they do have some minimum requirements, dollar-wise, and that kind of thing. But anyway, that's another route to go.
Sorry.
Any more questions? Well, guys, it's really been fun coming here with you guys. We have a booth. Todd is going to be here answering questions. I've got flyers. I'm a Tiny House of stickers. So make sure you come back and see Isabel here in just a few minutes. Isabel, I'm putting a plug in for you in case you can't hear me. All right, we love you guys.